ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Alright, so today's video, we're going to be running down X Factor number 10, Uncanny X-Men number 14, Phoenix number 11, and Wolverine number 9. And since X Factor is a comic that is getting a boot, much to my own chagrin, let's start with that one first. That's right, X Factor, sadly to say, is no more. This was one of 3 titles that got canceled at the X office, the other ones being X-Force and NYX. Those 2 books have already ended. This is pretty much the last one, and it makes me sad. But, before X Factor goes off into that good night, I gotta admit, I actually think that of the 3 titles that got canceled, I think this one might have ended the best. It delivers about the best possible conclusion that you could expect in these particular circumstances of a book being canceled, especially one that still had a lot more in the tank, I believe, and actually wrapped it up nice and neat, but also it kind of left a little bit of hope, just in case maybe X Factor could return at some point later. Probably not while Tom Brevoort is editor of the X office, though. Yeah, the entire team, they get a chance to shine, and I can't hate on that. Not one bit. I think that the coolest part of this is that everybody in the group, for the most part, gets to have a big damn heroes moment. And even towards the end, the promise of what the team could have been if they were left to flourish, I actually think is something to kind of marvel at, because I was like, man, the team is finally, they finally reached that moment. They've gotten out of the larval stage. They busted out of the cocoon, and this is what the team could have been. And now no one's going to get to see it because it's been canceled. And I literally, if you can't tell, I'm actually really salty about this. I'm actually particularly salty about this book getting canceled because I really loved it. But yeah, Havoc, I think, gets to help the team, take the fight to the government in what I feel is a way to attempt to save Polaris, which, to be fair, she doesn't really need saving. And it actually makes me a little sad that there was a fight teed up between Polaris and Archangel in the previous issue, and we never really get to see that fight play all the way out. We just kind of get to this issue, and she's already behind lock and key. And, the whole thing's already been dealt with. I will say, I don't think, if I remember correctly, this issue didn't get any extra pages at all. It's a standard, 21 pages, some odd of comic. So, if anything, you got cheated a little bit. But, yeah, they didn't really get any extra time to tell their story the way some of the other books actually did, which, once again, it sucks. But, yeah, you're not going to get to see that fight, which, not to say that we didn't get to see anything in the previous issue, but we didn't get to see a lot. The only character, though, that I feel actually felt useless in this entire issue was Dr. Reyes, because she just didn't get to do anything. And it's weird, too, because there's a huge moment that Archangel gets in this issue that I feel like could have easily been, a spot for Dr. Reyes. A part where the X Factor team shows up to try and save Polaris. General Mills and company, they're like, oh, yeah, hey, you guys pulled up, and we're totally just going to shoot the hell out of you guys. This is a moment that was tailor-made for Dr. Reyes because of her power to create force fields. And they give that moment to Archangel to shield the team from bullets, which I think, honestly, would have been more effective if they would have let Dr. Reyes do it, but that's, whatever. But, they got to let Archangel have his big damn heroes moment, because I feel like his arc of attacking Polaris, I can't help but feel like maybe this was something that was probably going to play out over the course of another, 2 or 3 issues, maybe, to give him a chance to get a little bit of character development. It's revealed that the entire world hates Archangel right now because they see him as a traitor, against mutants. And so, because this isn't going to go any further, and we can't just leave that plot thread just out there, we got to give Archangel that redemption moment, so they have to give it to him here. I feel like Dr. Reyes might have gotten shortchanged just because, it's, once again, got canceled. But yeah, he got it, and it was fine. It was cool, whatever.
I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm fine. I love it.
I think really probably the one big thing that really gets put to bed in this, and I think that's probably where a little bit more of the time was spent on this, at least in terms of being at the risk of giving up other, character moments, is that the character Jovius is addressed. Not to say he hasn't been addressed before. He was a few issues back. But, because of X-Manhunt, it kind of made more stuff have to shift in a different direction. We know that Jovius was alive. He didn't die. He's not a martyr for the mutant underground cause. He's been living a life of luxury behind a sealed door in a government facility, and it's revealed what they were doing with him this whole time. Like, yes, we know that the general was keeping him under lock and key because it was way easier to keep him from being a martyr that the mutant underground could use more effectively. It was better if eventually over time he's just hidden away. They have a martyr, but he's ultimately a martyr that could be forgotten about. But we learn that his whole thing, his mutant power, is that he has multiple redundant organs. So when he was shot up by Orcus during the siege of Krakoa, he didn't die. Matter of fact, Orcus kept him under lock and key no differently than what the General Mills character was doing, only in this case, they were farming his organs maliciously and using them for their own ends, selling them on the black market most likely. But the General actually got him out of that situation and made what was a somewhat more symbiotic relationship between the two characters, and maybe might explain why she was acting so weird about mutant the whole time. Like, that's probably the thing I think is one of the biggest casualties of this book, is that she was a character who I felt could have had some nuance. Not the typical mutant-hating villain that we usually get out of X-Men villains that are human. But she seemed like a character who seemed almost sympathetic to the mutant cause, but at the same time, she wasn't going to help them in any major way. Yeah, I feel like, man, that was a missed opportunity for her as a character. And, well, yes, we do get the whole thing that Jovius mentions it became grateful to his captors, basically suffering a little bit of Stockholm syndrome. I feel like there was more to it that could have been told, and we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it at all. That said, we do get to see Havoc and Polaris make up at the end of this issue, though they are not back together by any stretch of the imagination. But it's left open, for them to reconcile more later down the road. And Havoc also gets to get a little bit of his agency back. He's been a character who's been in a little bit of limbo as of late, sometimes both figuratively and literally. During the Hellions saga, he was still kind of reeling from being inverted. He having some really strong mental health issues that were just overwhelming him during the Hellions series. And by the time you got to Dark X-Men, he did get killed off. But Madeline Pryor kept him alive using her magic and sorcery. And basically he was walking around like a Frankenstein, and there was that. And then he was back to being normal again, but it just kind of seemed like he was rudderless. And we're just following him in his sad sackedness of it all. But here it seems like he actually has a bright future ahead of him. Maybe. And Darkstar is free. Yeah. Next up is going to be Uncanny X-Men number 14. This was a huge issue, just in terms of everything that was going on in it. This was, it was a lot. We'll try and see if I can break this down without going too terribly far out there. But basically, we saw that the outliers in the previous issue were coming face to face with the Man-Thing. And as we all know, all those who know fear burn at the touch of the Man-Thing. So that was kind of the huge, whole big to-do, is that the outliers are meeting a creature they've never seen before. One that could very easily scare the crap out of them. And one would not be too terribly angry with them for being afraid. But in this, we actually have to see that all of the outliers seem to be relatively unaffected by him. All with the exception of Calico. Though Calico seems less afraid of the Man-Thing and more afraid of something that she's starting to accept. And it's here where we learn that the horse that she's been palling around with, Ember, the very same horse that you've seen multiple times get turned into a flaming Pegasus and all sorts of other things that she seems to have a very tight bond with, this actually is not her original horse. The horse that we've seen her walking around with is something else. Some kind of a construct or a projection of some type. But apparently, Ember died in the fire that happened at her house. The very same fire that seemed to have claimed her parents. Now, all that being said, it kind of makes you wonder exactly what is going on with Calico. Because we have seen a couple of times over the course of the series, the horse exhibited some very strange behavior that let you know it was not a normal horse. It's a very strong chance that horse is her mother, or a projection of her mother. Something is going on. Whatever it is, we have literally heard her refer to the disembodied voice that we later saw when she summoned Ember, kind of like fell into that spot. But we basically, whatever is going on, her mom's involved. That's all I got. That's all I got for it. We also in this issue get confirmation on which one of the outliers is the Endling, the one that is supposedly going to bring about ruin to mutant kind. Whichever character it is still up in the air because it only really whittles it down to possible candidates, and they're actually both the same people who I've been kind of poking my finger at this entire time. Basically, during an encounter between Gambit and Soderong, we get information that whoever the Endling is, they are female. Or at the very least, give off female energy. I don't know if this is going to be an ass pull later that comes out of this, but we'll wait and see. But basically, it kind of points the finger very squarely at either Calico or Jitter. That is basically what I got. Considering that we also know that Calico's mom is still kind of wrapped up in this somehow, and that she could very well potentially be a mutant of some sort or something, who the hell knows? It could also be her as well. There's the potential for that. But right now, I'm squarely focused Calico and Jitter. And Calico is the most obvious character. She's almost so obvious that it can't be her. I'm thinking it probably will maybe wind up being Jitter. But who knows? Dale might make it the obvious choice, but she's not usually an obvious choice writer. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Jitter or Calico, take your pick. Either way, we're not going to get to focus on really any of that for too terribly long, because Rogue is going to come up and basically do something that's really stupid. Like, she's going to try to attack Soderong, which I thought was interesting considering that she's flying at Soderong. She can clearly, or at least I would assume, she can see that Gambit is riding on the back of Soderong. She would assume that this was a bad thing. I have no idea. But she basically chin checks Soderong. It starts a whole fight that, honestly, I kind of feel like was really just a way to kind of distract from what was going on at the moment and get us kind of into some action stuff. That's what I kind of feel like was going on here with this particular part of it. And then once you get past that, it really kind of leads us more into the conversation Soderong and Gambit were having in the prior issue, where it was revealed that because Gambit is holding on to that eye of Agamotto, this one is different than the one, obviously, that Doctor Strange would normally have. This one is going to ultimately lead to Gambit becoming just like Soderong. He's going to wind up becoming more monstrous than man, and he's going to have a hunger for human flesh. Ultimately, at some point, he is going to wind up trying to eat his fellow Uncanny X-Men. What I find more interesting is that Soderong reveals this to the Uncanny team, and they seem off-put by it, but Gambit doesn't seem willing to give up the eye. So I wonder what it is he's planning on holding it for, what he's going to do with it. Like, what possible use could he have for this eye, knowing what it's going to ultimately do to him, that he's willing to take that chance. Any eye of Agamotto can be incredibly powerful. So that said, all of this does lead to what I felt was a really touching moment for Jubilee, who I felt hasn't really gotten a whole heap of a lot of play in these issues, but it was actually nice to see Soderong address Jubilee and the sadness that she's feeling, and also pointing out that Jubilee, when she looks at Soderong, she sees something that reminds her of her child, Shogo. Now, I know there are some people who probably don't remember, but Jubilee does have an adopted son named Shogo. During the Krakoan era, he was turned into a dragon in Teenie Howard's Excalibur series. This is basically what this was all a nod to, and she says that there was something about Soderong that reminded her of her son. And there's also been hinted that she was going to reach out to Shogo at some point. How old he might be by this point, I wouldn't imagine he's too terribly much older than what he was during the Krakoan era, but some time has passed. So he's probably, I would say, at least old enough to maybe almost be talking. We'll see. But yeah, at this point, where we're at right now with that, I'm pretty sure we'll see Jubilee reach out to him very soon. As for the rest of it, there's some really cool stuff going on with Henrietta, who we were introduced to in the previous issue, and we actually get to see what her powers are in this issue. It was kind of seemingly hinted that maybe she might have some like energy manipulation abilities. She had the really crazy glowing red eyes in issue 13. It actually kind of seemed almost like maybe she has some kind of optic energy manipulation similar to Cyclops, or maybe some kind of energy projection or whatever. No, that's not actually what it is. Her power, and it was honestly kind of shown to us in the previous issue when it was mentioned that all the obsidian that was in the area, in the swamp, stuff that shouldn't be there, well, she's the reason why it's there, and it actually makes even more sense now. Henrietta's power is that she's a geomancer. It seems she's able to summon these rock-like monsters out of the ground, like almost out of nowhere, but yes, they're coming out of the ground, and these are rock monsters that are powerful enough to flip a car or break a human with a single hit. And also, she's able to sheathe herself in a sort of rock form. And yeah, she bad. She a bad mamma jamma. I'd love to see it. And she's also responsible for the grave site that the Outliers are hanging out at. And she's also responsible for calling out to Death Dream to come to that place to begin with. And that she wants someone to replace her, to watch over the dead that are buried there. Most of which, it seems, are not mutant, but people who have done harm to mutant kind. Now, who is going to ultimately be the person who has to watch over these, unknown number of dead people remains to be seen, because it doesn't have to be Death Dream. It could be anybody. He makes it very clear, but it seems like she's not asking. It seems like she's telling. And I don't know, it seems like a huge change for the character, because she seemed like very sweet and nice, but honestly, I would imagine if you've been dealing with the types of racism and bigotry she had been dealing with, the time that she has, and she's been around since, what are, effectively Jim Crow era, I think it's safe to say that she's not having a good time with any of this by any stretch of the imagination. Something has flipped in her, and she has witnessed terrible things. She's witnessed what are effectively the precursor to the Sentinel program, what are referred to as Sentinels, but are actually humans who are fighting, trying to take down mutants and persecute them and basically purge them from the earth. She's gone through a lot, and she's witnessed a lot of death. Not surprising. And she has the attitude that she has. I mean, it's heartbreaking, but not surprising. Now, one thing I am curious about is if she has any other powers, because we do see her wielding flame by the end of this issue, which makes sense considering we've seen that there's this what appears to be eternal flame in the rest of the gravesite that doesn't seem to have been lit by man. So she seems to have some control over what is effectively maybe thermal and geological forces. We'll just kind of have to wait and see once we get more information about that. There's lots of really cool things here. Gail did a lot of homework on this. She did a really good job of showcasing, the times before, a time following slavery and following mutants who would come from backgrounds that don't normally get a lot of shine. I gotta admit, I take back everything I said. I was really concerned about how this would be addressed, how this would be done. Gail did not disappoint me. Honestly, I was very skeptical of this, not because of her, but because of Marvel. Marvel is really bad about trying to prop up black characters and try and make them seem important, and then they'll just forget about them later, when it suits them. They'll only bring them up when, it's Black History Month and put them in a Marvel Voices issue, and I'm not with that, because it just shows that, this is just something we do for the metrics, and we're not doing this because we want to. But I really appreciate that Gail did this, and she actually put a lot of respect on this character's name. And I'm hoping we get to see a lot more of this. I don't know how long this character will hang around, but the fact that Gail actually took the time to highlight the orphan trains from around that time frame, because once again, we're talking for those who don't know, the orphan trains were a thing that was going on between mid 1800s, the 1850s, up to the early 1920s. About as late as 1924. This was basically the precursor to the foster care system that we have today. But basically, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 200 to 300 some odd thousand children who came from very different backgrounds, who came from either poverty or were abandoned by their parents, or otherwise their parents died and they were just orphans that way. This was basically a way to get these children into new homes, to get them off the streets, to basically combat child poverty. And, it wasn't perfect. I'm not going to make it sound like it was some perfect thing. It was far from perfect. But basically what they would do is they would take these children and, I guess, rehome them into rural farm families, usually what was the case. But the fact that Gail actually took the time to kind of throw that out there, I was like, dude, that's really cool. I thought that was pretty neat. But yeah, this is a fantastic issue. I'm really, really interested to see what more is going to be done with Lady Henrietta. I need more. I need a lot more. I want Gail to do more of this. Tom, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up, Tom. Next up is going to be Phoenix 11. This is a series I have not talked about very much lately. Not because I didn't enjoy it, just because I've just been busy. But I'm going to talk about it here. Basically, this is a whole new story arc that's being kicked off with this one. And it's of note to me because of the personal nature of it for Jean. Jean, over the course of the past issue or so, she's been having these visions and dreams, and it was even hinted that there was a character from her past that was going to be returning, and that's her sister, Sarah. For those unfamiliar, Sarah Gray was the sister of Jean Grey and was a normal human. She wasn't a mutant like Jean, and she even went on to become someone who was an advocate for mutants. She even had 2 children, Galen and Joey, who, to my understanding, they were mutants, but we never really knew what their powers were. They were killed off by the Shi'ar Empire, if I remember correctly, and Jean's sister Sarah was killed off even before that. She was killed off by the Purifiers during the whole Phalanx Covenant debacle, if memory also serves. For whatever reason, Sarah Gray is back. Her children are still very dead, but Sarah is back, and it seems as though, for whatever reason, she has been made a mutant, or at least she hints that she is a mutant. She says that her latent mutant power is helping other people reach their potential, their full potential. Something that is an odd power to have, and I guess would be very easy to ask. But yeah, she's a mutant now. This is actually probably the strangest part of the whole thing to me. I don't think anyone should get too terribly worked up about this, largely because I'm almost positive that this ain't Sarah. I think this is something wearing Sarah's face. I'm getting Blood Hunt vibes at the very least. But yeah, I'll just say this. Sarah, what she's doing right now, she's off in some far-flung reach of the space-time continuum, and she's basically helping young mutants who are just trying to figure their stuff out. She's trying to help them find their place in the world. At the same time, it's difficult to say what the hell is going on here. I'm not gonna lie, this is a weird story. It's going to be wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey shenanigans, and I'm here for it. I'm totally here to follow along. Jean getting to go back into the white-hot room to try and find her sister is pretty interesting in and of itself, especially when you consider the state of what's going on with Krakoa, or rather, New Krakoa, and how the X-Men kind of promised to let New Krakoa do its thing and stay far the hell away from it. I'm interested to see what all is going to come out of this, but it's even more interesting just because Cable is being drugged into these shenanigans as well. And Cable, having recognized that there's something going on, he has a very similar ability to Bishop. They both share this ability where they're able to, because of the amount of time traveling they've done, they're able to tell when things have been changed. They can feel the temporal shifts. So Cable is going back in time because he recognizes bad is happening. Something is changing the past. He goes back, and while we don't really get to see much of him in this issue, we do know that something bad is going to happen in regards to him because Jean is even recognizing that something's off. And I find it interesting that Jean, she is so caught up in being reunited with her sister, or what appears to be her sister, she's ignoring some of the red flags. One of them being that she's not herself asking the questions about Sarah that she should be asking. She's taking everything that Sarah is telling her at face value. Almost as if she knows that some fuck shit is going on and she just chooses to ignore it. But you can kind of understand why. She lost her sister under terrible circumstances. But yeah, by the time you get to the end of this, we see that Jean, she's embracing her sister. And out of her line of sight, though I do feel like this is something she should be able to see, or maybe this is all like kind of, implied. I don't know. It's difficult to say, but you can see Cable's dismembered arm just floating right out of the corner of Jean's eye, covered in blood, missing some fingers. So clearly there's something up with Sarah. We don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, it ain't good. Either way, there's a bad future heading Jean's way. Hopefully, she figures her shit out. Like, I want nothing more than for this to be actual Sarah, but I don't know. I just don't know about that. All I know is the last time we saw Sarah, she was absorbed into the Phalanx before this. Like, her death was even off panel. Like we didn't even see her get clapped. It was like she died, she was taken out, and foul play, purifiers killed her, and she was absorbed by the Phalanx. I don't know why Jean would trust this. As far as I'm concerned, this is some because comic book shit, so it plays. I'm willing to give it a chance. Last and most certainly not least is going to be Wolverine number 9. This is Wolverine basically getting drugged into some shenanigans that I'm really hoping are not actually going to play out the way I think they do. That's because we saw that in the last issue, Wolverine's mother, who had, retired her own jersey long ago, over 100 years ago, suddenly is miraculously alive and well. We haven't seen her, but, she sent Wolverine a letter basically saying she was alive, trying to explain why she did what she did, because for those who don't remember, Logan's mother basically hated him for being a mutant, and that was supposed to be the reason why she took herself out. No one would accuse her of being the best mom ever. Like, prior to us learning the truth about what actually happened between Mystique and Nightcrawler when he was a kid, one could still have easily have made the argument Wolverine's mother was objectively worse than Mystique. So, take that how you wanna. What we get here is that Wolverine sees this for what it is. He sees it as a trap. Going back to the old Howlett estate is a trap. It is. There's no way that it's not. And over the course of this issue, as Wolverine's trying to figure his shit out, we see him run back into Agent Meta, now an inspector. She's no longer just a regular agent. She got a little bit of a raise after her first encounter with Wolverine. But basically, Saladin is setting her up to be a more important character for Wolverine as the book goes forward. We know she's going to be keeping tabs on him, but outside of that, basically she's just there to remind you, hey, don't forget about me. I'm doing shit out here. And she's probably going to pop back up again because her whole job is keep tabs on Wolverine. Wolverine returning to his childhood home is probably going to be cause for alarm, and she's going to follow him, even though he told her not to. So just expect to see her again very soon. But, the trap plays out because when Wolverine pulls up on his old home, who's waiting on him? 2 original recipe marauders, Harpoon and Vertigo. 2 characters who could not be good guys if they tried. To be fair, I don't think they've ever actually been given a fair chance to. But, they're typically bad guys. They are, unabashed killers. They were a part of the mutant massacre of the Morlocks. I think it's safe to say they're bad. But the reason why I said that I'm a little worried about this, Wolverine seems to be of the belief that he smells Sabretooth at his home. Now, the reason why this would be surprising, because very recently, Sabretooth was killed off. Now, this is comic books. I don't expect any character that's killed off to stay dead for very long, especially nowadays in comics. But I was actually hoping that Sabretooth was going to take a knee for a little while. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But the reason why I think it would not be a good idea is because we literally just saw Sabretooth get killed off in Wolverine number 50 during the Krakoan War. He was literally chopped up into little pieces by the Muramasa blade in the hands of Wolverine. And for those who don't know, the reason why this is important to note is because the Muramasa blade nullifies a person's healing factor. So the fact that he was chopped up meant that he wasn't going to be growing back anytime soon. Now, to be fair, the Muramasa blade, it could be stated that the effects of the healing factor nullification aren't always permanent, but it could also be stated that maybe someone put him back together eventually. or maybe resurrected him somehow. Because that's the other thing we gotta take into consideration. All this was going on in and around the same time as the fall of the House of X, Rise of the Powers of 10, X-Men Forever. And during that time frame, every mutant who was dead was brought back to life. So it's very likely Sabretooth was brought back after he was killed off by Wolverine. It's very possible. I'm willing to concede that ground. We'll just kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. I feel like it's a waste to bring him back this early because just, man, I feel like, man, we could have at least waited maybe a full year. We could have waited a full year. I think we could have waited a full year at least. But yeah, hey, we'll get there when we get there. I'm hoping it's not Sabretooth, or if it is, it's not the Sabretooth. Maybe it's a clone or something. I don't know. We'll have to just kind of wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of apprehension. I'm very apprehensive about this. Like I said, there's a lot of ways that Sabretooth could still be alive. I mean, it's not to say like this is going to be like a huge ass pull that, I'm not going to be able to just, go along with. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's comics. So yeah, either his healing factor came back and someone just said, hey, let's put all those pieces back together. Because, I mean, let's be real. When Sabretooth got killed off, no one collected him. He just got left there on Krakoa. Like I said, he could have been brought back by the Five, though I feel like the Five would have just skipped his name. Because Sabretooth can't be trusted. Man, you can never be trusted. Honestly, I feel like with the Marauders being involved, I feel like Mr. Sinister's not very far away. And if anyone would bring back Sabretooth, it would be Mr. Sinister, so who knows? But, yeah. Sabretooth is back on the menu, apparently.